All right, and welcome back to episode 38 of Modern Prescription. My name is Dr. Deepak Dugar.
And I'm Dr. Jeff Toll.
And today we have a great episode of a lot of cool topics.
It's a big Seaspiracy out there.
First of all, what's wrong with your voice,
The
Jeff?
Seaspiracy that's really happening is me losing my voice for
Yeah.
unexplained reasons. One episode after we have the voice expert.
Yes, exactly.
I need Dr. Nasseri this week.
And the number one advice he had was don't talk. So let's basically do exactly the opposite and let's have you talk for an hour.
I have a problem with my talking, which is that I like to do it.
At least you have water with you.
I brought some water.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how I lost my voice. I was screaming at the TV with that exciting NCAA tournament.
Did you watch the
ending,
UCLA game?
And I had money on the game and I was like screaming. So I think that's what like the final nail in the coffin was, but it was starting all week. I was like a little raspy.
That was a crazy end.
I feel like I should be voicing over some like sexy movie scene. With
I was
this
going to say,
voice.
you have very nice, like, you know, I feel like you could sing
sound-
like a nice, like old school song.
Something like that.
Yeah, like a black and white.
Your voice is sometimes like this.
My voice is always like that. Yeah. I just have that coarse.
like a
hoarse.
cowboy or something. Like a Texan.
I'm a Texan. I am a Texan. Yeah. We're going to work it through. So if you like Jeff's sexy voice, we're going to have him yell every episode to make sure it sounds like this
I could just
always.
do this on purpose, right? If I just yell all the time.
Just yell nonstop right before we film.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
Thanks for listening, guys. We're going to get into some great topics today. All right, we're back, episode 38 with Jeff's sexy horse voice.
Love it.
We're talking about another conspiracy going on.
A lot of conspiracies here.
Yeah.
I actually watched 2 different conspiracy-related shows this
Which
week.
ones?
I watched Seaspiracy.
Which we're going to talk
and
about.
then I started watching the show about QAnon on HBO.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, a documentary about like who's Q and how this started and all that. That was cool as well.
So Seaspiracy, let's talk about. You watched it obviously as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think in general, we're, anywhere you look on the planet, we're learning like how we're destroying it and how toxic it is and how we're destroying all the species and ourselves. And, I think, obviously it's a documentary, so he's hammering home his points and I'm sure there's validity to a lot of them. But,
The short of it, if you haven't watched it, was that basically this is a guy who was documenting how we are destroying the oceans and how everything was based on plastic straws. And there's all this, evidence towards the plastic contamination in the oceans. And then when he dug really deep, he realized that that's like the smallest percentage of what's causing the problem. The biggest percentage is fishing.
Yeah.
Like the actual mass fishing industry is killing byproducts by killing tons of dolphins and tons of fish that are not supposed to be killed on a regular basis because of the mass fishing.
Right. They basically put these nets that are bigger than like a giant building and just drag them across the whole ocean and kill everything there.
Kill everything there. And they're saying that it's causing more damage to the carbon dioxide than the rainforest burning in Brazil. That's how destructive it is. But one thing I took away from it is that, yes, mass farming, mass fishing, anything animal product-wise is probably very bad. I have a feeling that, generally speaking, I think in the next 50 years, we're going to go back to single hunting type activity. Like you singularly fish for a fish. I don't think so. I feel like we should. I don't know if we will.
The problem is, the more it goes this direction, the more it needs to do it even more because it's the cheapest way to feed everyone.
Right.
And
I know.
Unless the population declines.
But at what cost? This is what's crazy.
I think, nature has a way of winning out. So if in the end it means a decline in humanity like a few hundred years from now because we destroyed all our food sources, that may be the case.
Right.
But
as a physician who takes care of patients for health purposes on a daily basis, do you think there's a significant health benefit to being a vegan?
So I would say yes and no. So if you're thoughtful about what you eat about vegan,
and not just doing bread and fake cheese.
The thing is, a lot of vegans have a very carb-heavy diet. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to become vegan. Be very careful doing that because what you end up doing is eating a lot of rice, potatoes, starchy yams because you're not eating like a steak. So you eat like a sweet potato. And there's it ends up being a lot of carbs, nachos, and people think that because they're not eating meat, I can eat French fries, and they end up gaining weight. A lot of vegans, this happens to.
Yeah.
And the fake cheese is better than real cheese. Obviously, we're not meant to eat dairy really, but that can be the problem with a vegan diet. I think, we don't need as much protein as most of us tend to eat. And then also, with the whole fishing thing, a lot of us don't realize too, we're buying a lot of times farmed fish too, which are just like disgustingly covered in chemical, like toxins, and they put food coloring to make them look the right color.
Right. They talked about in Seaspiracy that salmon, pink salmon, none of us are actually eating pink salmon. We're eating color-dyed salmon.
Color dye to make it, because they're not eating the normal plankton they eat that make them that color.
Exactly.
Because they're in an artificial environment.
Yeah.
So anyway, as far as what are the implications on us, I think, there's probably risk of cancer, risk of all these things that are very hard to quantify. So if it slightly gives you more chemicals in your body, that slightly increase your odds of cancer. And then when you're 79, you have liver cancer, it's impossible to say it's because you ate fish your whole life.
Right.
So we can never, it's just not attributable easily.
Yeah. No, I think it's more of the global impact of what we're going to end up doing to the world ecosystem and how we're potentially going to destroy our entire planet.
Yeah. So I think you would think they could figure out things like inventing bacteria that can break down microplastics and stuff like that. But there's always like a problem with the solutions that we find. Because the solution, unless the solution is go back to what we used to do when the world was sustainable.
Right.
Whenever you try to solve it with something, then that bacteria is going to, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But bacteria is a good thing because we were talking about this earlier. So they did a study where they found that the microplastics are causing a type of bacterial resistance because of the sludge that they're creating. And in general, bacterial resistance is obviously a huge topic. Everyone's, there's two camps, right? There's people who are sick and they take antibiotics immediately. And there's people who have a concept of antibiotic resistance and they're super hesitant to take antibiotics. I personally have always been of the, kind of in the middle, because dealing with, nose infections, things like that, if they happen, they can be very severe. They can cause major problems. So we put our patients on antibiotics every time they have surgery. Right. But there are people who say that, hey, you're contributing to the problem. That's part of the antibiotic resistance problem. And so I understand that. But you dealing with infections all over the body, what's your thoughts on antibiotic resistance?
So I think pre-surgical prophylactic antibiotics are fine. That's not probably causing that much resistance. The problem with resistance, the main ones, at least in the medical community, are people who are chronically sick, who are having these low-grade infections where they're going to keep getting infections. So if someone, for example, has chronic urinary infections and they're not actually causing any symptoms per se, let's say this is in a person who's living in a nursing home and they can't get out of bed and they're getting these frequent urinary infections.
Right.
If you keep treating them, this person who constantly is going to have bacteria in the urine, eventually you will give a Darwinian evolutionary stress for one bacteria to evolve and be resistant to all these antibiotics you're giving them. And then if you keep giving them the same antibiotics you've been giving them, only that one will survive. They will proliferate. They'll make more. And then when people live in these homes, they spread those bacteria amongst each other. So you start coming out with all these organisms, all these 3-letter VRE and MRSA and, all these things that are very resistant that become major problems in hospitals. So, they're kind of like created with these people who are recurringly sick. They come back and forth from the nursing home to the hospital and then can spread and become common for everyone. And so now, a lot of strains of Staph aureus are resistant MRSA. It's very common in the community.
Right.
And very likely over the years, there'll be more and more of these things that kind of are just common.
MRSA is so common that for a lot of our patients, we actually have them swab the inside of their nose with Bactroban, which is mupirocin, to kill MRSA before surgery, because that's how prevalent it is now in society, that MRSA is just everywhere because of like what you said. The other thing I think the problem is, and this is all medical like a big medical problem is that we treat patients on a singular level. So when you see diagnose patient in that moment, give them antibiotics. But if you had like a course of their history, like, hey, this patient's taking antibiotics 15 times the past 2 years, then you might stop and rethink and say, okay, maybe let's try something different this time.
And exactly, totally.
And we, in most of these nursing home patients, the problem is they're being treated on a singular level each time.
Yeah, they call the doctor who's on call covering 80 patients in that nursing home and say, hey, doctor, the urine smells funny, and he just throws antibiotics at it because he's not going to go do, it's too much time intensive to deal with it. The funny thing is the antibiotic thing, just like the vaccine thing swings back and forth, every 10 years it goes, the pendulum swings back and forth.
Right. So,
15, 20 years ago, everyone was so happy vaccines are curing the world. There's no more polio. There's no more smallpox. Vaccines are the hero. And now, because they worked and the risk of getting these diseases was so low, eventually the risk of the vaccine was almost as much as the risk of the disease because it cured the disease. That's why that became the point.
Yeah, very good point. I think that's a great sentence because they're so focused on the side effects of the vaccine because of how rare the disease became because of the vaccine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
So with antibiotics, I think in the 90s, the practice in general was anytime anyone had a sniffle, they would get a Z-Pack. Doc, can I get a Z-Pack? Like how often I get a call from a patient who's like, hey, doc, can you call me in a Z-Pack? Why? Oh, I don't know. I've had a runny nose, since yesterday. And then I'll say, well, what's it like? Oh, it's totally clear. Any fever, any sore throat? No. But, the Z-Pack, I'm always better in like 2-3 days after the Z-Pack.
Right.
They don't understand it's because maybe they just have allergies and they would have gotten better in 2 or 3 days with nothing.
Or most commonly, they have a viral infection sometimes. A common cold, which is a virus that will resolve on its own, doesn't always turn into a bacterial infection that needs the antibiotics.
Correct. And so humans lived for millennia without antibiotics. Even a basic sinus infection, a lot of the time, our body will get rid of it.
It's usually viral,
If you eat E. coli in bad, oysters and you have diarrhea, about 90 to 95% of the time, your body will kill that. And you may have diarrhea for a week, but you're going to get better.
Right.
And so when we start to treat all these things with Cipro and this and that, then, GI bugs start getting resistance as well. And that can become a problem. And, there's a lot of interesting stuff that we don't understand about the gut microbiome. Our good not the bad bacteria that cause infections, but the good bacteria that help us break down food and help us absorb the nutrients we eat. It's an area of interest that we want to know more about, but don't really completely understand. There was this company, Ubiome, that just they all went to jail because they made I don't know if you remember this company, but a lot of people in the last 2-3 years were always saying, oh, I want to find out what my gut bacteria is like. And it was like a 23andMe of your gut bacteria. And it told you all the strains you have there. And you have this, you're lacking this good bacteria and you're lacking this one.
How do they get the sample? Saliva?
Poop sample.
Oh, poop sample.
Yeah.
So that sounds fun. So you poop in a bag
basically
and you mail
and
it?
they test the poop for the different strains of, they do like a PCR on.
So you're mailing your poop.
Yes. You mail the poop.
That sounds awesome.
And I had a lot of patients interested in this and I thought it was a real thing because they were publishing all this data. It turned out to be all fake.
All fraud.
And they all went to jail. But we thought it was really cool.
Wow.
And, we see there's a bacteria called C. diff, which is a very difficult to kill GI bug.
Clostridium difficile,
Clostridium difficile, very hard to kill. And the crazy thing is, the antibiotics that kill it are things like vancomycin, these really strong things.
Super strong antibiotics.
And what they found out is the very best way to get rid of C. diff is actually to get poop donated to you from a host with normal bacteria. And the normal bacteria from someone else will actually overcome the C. diff and give you... And
it's called a fecal transplant.
Fecal transplant.
Yeah, where they actually insert the poop from another human into your body.
Correct.
Yeah, it's so disgusting, but yet it works.
It works because it's giving you the normal bacteria, which is a more normal way, which is really what you need. You want to restore the normal bacteria, not just kill everything. And these really strong antibiotics kill everything. And so that's the problem is you have a sniffle. Even if you do have a slight sinus infection, is it worth killing all your good bacteria in your whole body?
Right. To get rid of that
To get rid of this thing that you would get rid of in a week if you...
Potentially, yes. And if it doesn't go in a week...
if it gets worse.
Yeah, then you could do the antibiotics after 4 to 5 days. But the problem is we live in such a I want it cured now society.
Yeah.
Like everyone wants the instant fix. And that's where you get those calls for the Z-Pack instantly. And I do too. I get calls for Z-Pack from sniffles all the time. And this goes back to like, you know, we as doctors generally are doing singular treatments. Patient sick, see us, treat, right? There's not a lot of a holistic approach. You know, you're able to because you're a type of practice.
It's nice because someone will text me, hey, can you call me in a Z-Pack? I'll call them. We'll have this conversation. And I'll say, in 4 days, if you're still having green stuff or if it's getting worse, text me and I'll fill it. Or even sometimes like an informed conversation like, here, I'm going to send you the antibiotics. I really wouldn't take it until Friday if you're not better. But just for convenience, here it is. And if it doesn't get better, start it then.
Right.
Like an informed conversation.
Right. But holistically as a doctor, we are always figuring out how to treat people once they're sick. We're not really part of the conversation of how to help them from not getting sick. And this is where I think Western medicine has a huge conflict sometimes with the naturopathics and the holistic healers who do look at the patients from a bigger perspective because they're not dealing with sick patients. So they have time. When a patient's in front of you is healthy, you can have an hour-long conversation and talk about all the things going on and how to prevent them, what to do. But if someone's sitting in front of you with kidney failure or sitting in front of you with like, bad diabetes or a heart failure, there's no conversation. You just have to get them back to baseline, get them normal. So that's where, you know, with naturopathic medicine in lots of cultures, like in India, homeopathic medicine is hugely popular. It's very complex because they sometimes don't understand the full capacity of what they may be causing with their treatments and their regimens. Naturopathic, especially here in the States, it can be a little, disconcerting sometimes what they can do without understanding the side effects. You have a patient who...
I've had a lot of... I think I want to start by saying I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing a naturopathic doctor. I think a lot of times they're super helpful.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're advising on good, healthy habits, mindfulness, good dietary habits, stuff like that.
Yes.
I think when they stay in that lane, which is what they should be doing, functional, here are some foods that you can eat to help you have bowel movements more regularly.
Yes.
All those are super helpful. But when they start to try to do medical things, and unfortunately in Los Angeles, there's a lot of naturopaths that prescribe hormones, which I think they have no business doing. So even as an internist, I feel like unless you take the extra mile and study it yourself, we don't learn enough about endocrinology during our internal medicine practice to even... I mean, I have hours of lectures, I've done rotations, et cetera, but still... you can do some basic stuff, but
like hormone replacement, like you talked about with Mario,
hormone replacement
like
therapy,
testosterone,
males,
exactly,
all these things. So I had a patient recently who, she's in her 20s. She's a model actress, and she'd been having a few issues. She's in her 20s. Her main issue is acne. She's healthy. And she's having some acne.
Yeah.
Second issue was she was feeling a little fatigued, run down. So this is someone who's traveling all the time for work, a lot of pressure, crazy sleep schedule because she's traveling and doing all, she's in Miami for a shoot, has to go to Paris, has to whatever, feeling fatigued. And she went to her naturopath, and the naturopath prescribed her testosterone for energy.
What was she on
thyroid.
Before though for the acne?
Yeah, so she was on birth control, and she was on spironolactone.
And birth control is commonly prescribed.
So a lot of acne is hormone driven in young women, and hormonal acne tends to be on the lower parts of the face, around the mouth and jawline, and it can become cystic where it's painful and red and this was keeping her from working. She's a model. She needed her skin to clear up. Yeah. And you sort of like start with topicals, vitamin A derivative topicals, benzoyl peroxides, and then you keep going. If that's not working, a lot of times birth control, especially if you get a tricyclic birth control. And then, eventually spironolactone, which actually purposely blocks peripheral testosterone.
Yes.
Because testosterone, like you think of these bodybuilders that take testosterone and they get acne.
Yes. Exactly.
So when you block testosterone, you block a lot of the oil glands that tend to cause the acne, which was doing, her acne was doing a lot better.
Yeah.
And then she went to, could there be a side effect of fatigue from there? Could be. Sure. And that's something that we needed to talk about.
Right.
But instead, the naturopath gave her testosterone cream, and that made the acne go insane, like out of control, and was very upsetting for her, obviously.
Yeah.
But this is what can happen when you.
Yeah.
Because that doctor doesn't know what those meds she's on are for. Right. It's not like they called me and said, hey, why?
Right.
And because when I see a patient on multiple meds who's seeing a diabetes doctor or urologist, whatever, and it's complicated, I will call those doctors and say, hey, what do you think about we switch this and this? And,
Yeah, it's the team approach to it. And I think that's the missing link for a lot of treatment of patients. Like I have a patient, very similar story. She went to a naturopath and had a great experience in a different way, because the naturopath helped her break down her diet, figure out the things that she maybe is having inflammatory reactions to, literally had her take away one thing a week until they got it and figured it out. And it took about 8 to 10 weeks till they figured it out. And now she has literally the best skin she's ever had in her life, literally from using a naturopathic doctor who helped break down her diet.
That's beautiful.
And that's a beautiful thing. But I agree with you. Once they start prescribing anything, even topical stuff that's over the counter, they need to do it in conjunction with their prescribing physician, like someone like you, so that they understand the team mentality of this patient. Because you can't just take ownership of someone. And I see that a lot, especially with celebrity patients. We see this all the time, where there is this ownership that doctors have. And it's doctors, naturopaths, anyone. Sometimes physicians do it too, where they have this ownership, where they want to be in control of everything, and they lose the team mentality around the patient. And that, I think, is the most important part to give the patient the best treatment, is to have that team mentality always. Yeah, it's interesting. And then back to the GI stuff, what is your thought on colon cleanses? Obviously one day we'll have a GI on here to talk about it, but what is your thought?
I think if someone is very, very backed up, very, very constipated, what we want to do is drink more water, have more fiber in our diet, move things along. There may be some underlying medical reason why someone's very backed up. Yeah. And there are, starting with natural things, like I said, fiber or Seneca, natural things to kind of stimulate. Sometimes cleaning someone all the way out and just like getting a reset button can be helpful. But for people who are like, oh, I did a colon cleanse and I lost 4 pounds.
Yes, you hear that all the time.
You're literally just taking the poop. So the poop there's pipes, and it starts at the mouth and it ends at the butt. And when you eat, the food you eat pushes things down the line, and like think about a conveyor belt, you put one thing on and then something's going off on the other side. Yeah. So the colon cleanse, it wipes the whole thing away, and you lose the 4 pounds of poop that's like passing through you. Right. But then like 3 or 4 days later, it's just
reaccumulates.
You have it again.
Yeah,
it's not actually doing it. It's not making you lose weight. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, because I think there's this huge culture of like, oh, you have excess poop in your body, you need to get rid of that. And so there's a lot of people on Instagram, especially, who post about doing colon cleanses on a regular basis to keep themselves healthy. And I think most GI doctors, the people who specialize in taking care of the flora of the gut, don't usually recommend colon cleanses on a regular basis.
And who knows what you're washing out all the good bacteria that you've hopefully built up over time. So it's funny. And the same people that are trying to have kombucha and all these things to boost their, gut health, and then they're getting a colon cleanse and washing it out.
So kombucha is a good one, because that is classically a drink for kind of energy / natural versions of energy. And so you talked about earlier your patient who has like low energy. That's obviously a very common thing in today's world, where people feel tired, people feel exhausted. Yeah. Your voice sounds tired.
Thank you.
And so what are the things that we can do when we feel tired in a natural way, rather than automatic stimulants like coffee? Because I'm a huge anti-coffee person. I'm not a big coffee fan. Really? Yeah, I don't like stimulants. I feel like I do coffee on weekends only, like Saturday or Sunday. I never do coffee during the week, very rarely, because I think it's a stimulant. It's just like drinking alcohol, or it's just like smoking. It's a stimulant. You're altering the natural patterns of your body. So I feel like we as a society abuse it and use it on a daily basis. And we've made it okay that caffeine's a drug that you can use on a daily basis. Yeah. But there is that moment, like that Jessie Spano moment in Saved by the Bell, where she's addicted to caffeine pills. Most of America's addicted to caffeine.
Caffeine pills are a lot.
Yeah. And I had a patient recently addicted to caffeine pills who we underwent a rhinoplasty for, and her blood pressure was super labile, up and down, up and down. And then after the surgery, we talked to her, because thank God it's a short procedure, but we talked to her, and The problem is she's been addicted to caffeine pills on and off for the past 10 years.
Oh, man.
And that's completely throwing off her cardiovascular system. And there's a lot of side effects that people don't realize.
Yeah, a lot of caffeine pills is no good for sure.
Yeah.
There is a little, like one coffee or two, there is not really any data that's ever been published that has bad cardiovascular outcomes. There's some data both for tea, especially green tea, that actually it's protective from neurologically, actually. So there's some argument to be made that caffeine protects against Parkinson's and other types of dementia. You know, whatever, it could be true. It's not like overwhelming data.
Right.
But I do totally agree that a lot of people do want other really bad stimulants like the Adderalls and the Vyvances and all these things that I really hate.
Yeah.
I do have some patients on them. I'm rarely the person that originally prescribed them. I have patients who
it'd be a pediatrician usually, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they may have started with a pediatrician.
Or a psychiatrist who's diagnosed ADHD or something.
Yeah.
But not for tiredness.
No, it is for tiredness sometimes. So some people...
Yeah, that's what I don't recommend that for tiredness.
I wouldn't recommend it really for anything, but...
Yeah, for ADHD and things like that, I understand there might be some, psychological reasons that people need it. But for tiredness, I think that's not a great idea.
I'm actually really pretty against it for ADHD for the most part too. I think it will help someone focus, but it causes a lot of problems down the road. And it may not be worth the juice isn't worth the squeeze, I think, at some point. So, they have a lot of people who started on Adderall and did better in high school and college as a result, end up with a lot of anxiety and sleep problems post 10 years later.
You think because the expectation of the body is that the amphetamine is going to come, and when the amphetamine doesn't come anymore, they now have
still
this?
on it. They're still on it. It's just 10 years of being on 20 years of being on amphetamines.
And so you're at a higher state all the time. And so your body is in a state of shock in a sense that you're
like stressed.
Have anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a catecholamine surge basically, which is what happens during anxiety.
Right.
Yeah. Very interesting.
So I don't like them. I have people on them, but I really don't like
agree.
them.
I agree with you.
As far as natural ways to boost your energy, I think the number one for me is exercise.
Exercise. I agree. 100% agree.
Sex.
Yep. That's a good one.
Again,
healthy, natural sex life.
Sex. Even things, I think a lot of like those underrated, those endorphins or love hormones, hug your spouse, hug your children. You actually will like feel more energy and feel better.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think, again, healthy diet, and then your sleep schedule and sleeping at the right time. The same time every day, all the sleep hygiene stuff. Sleep
hygiene's huge. Super important. I agree with the diet, especially. I feel like sluggishness definitely comes from what we put in our bodies.
Yeah, if you eat a massive cheeseburger for lunch, and then you're going to be feeling like you want to take a nap an hour later.
Exactly. And that used to be a huge thing I remember like in medical school, you would have these massive lunches sometimes, especially doing like round, like they would do like internal medicine. You do like the rounds or whatever it's called. You guys do
grand rounds.
Grand rounds, yeah. And then there's always food or something, and then you would eat, and then after the rest of the day, everyone's super sluggish and like dying for coffee.
The hypocrisy of what is fed to both residents and patients in a hospital is actually insane.
It's actually insane.
I make rounds in the morning, and I'm in someone just had like heart surgery, and you go in the room, and there's like Jello. Applesauce. It's like insane what they do.
I will say Cedars-Sinai though, where you work, actually has ridiculously good food.
It's good for a
hospital.
Yeah.
For a hospital.
Yeah.
Like they have these special cookies that they send. I don't know if you ever had those.
I was a resident there, so I lived in I hospital for 3 years. And
right. So you're
ate every meal there. So like now I can't eat anything there, but
When my wife was delivering, we spent a few days at Cedars, and late night, I remember I was in the cafeteria getting food, and it just brought back such memories of residency. Where like, 11 o'clock, you have 3 free moments. You run to the cafeteria to try to eat something real quick, and you eat whatever they have. Usually something gross off the grill, some gross onion rings.
I was like such buddies with all those like the late night chef guys because they go home at midnight. Those guys, and you'd walk in like with your whole team at like 11:53 because you finally have a free second, and the guy's like, no, but he'll make we would get all the off the menu stuff.
Off the menu's huge.
Meaning like we would just like He'd just make us all. He would just like make us quesadillas and just throw whatever meat was left.
I love it. That's the beauty of the hospital when you have those memories. It is fun eating in the hospitals. Sleep hygiene is a huge one too, what you talked about, because I think that is totally, completely ignored in our society. And thankfully now we're getting more technology wearable stuff that people are getting into. Whoop is a technology wearable that people are wearing. It's a bracelet around the wrist, monitors your daytime and nighttime activities, your sleep cycles. Aura ring is the ring around your finger that monitors your pulse and monitors your sleep cycles when you're sleeping. So I think wearable technology is great because it gives more data. Because some people don't understand if they're sleeping good or not, because you wake up tired. Is it because sleep or is it because something else, you know? And I think wearable data now is really helping a lot of people. So Whoop and Aura are the two that are most popular right now. But I think they're great because understanding your sleep patterns and sleep cycles and understanding how much restful sleep you're getting, understanding what REM sleep is, that's the most deep stage of sleep. You know, sleep is in 4 stages and the later stage of sleep is usually the deepest stage, and sleep usually happens in 90-minute cycles. So every 90 minutes, the new cycle starts. So we used to always say if you're going to take a nap, generally either do a 5 to 10 minute power nap, which is just a quick reset, or if you're going to do a longer nap, it should be in 90-minute increments.
I wish I had 90 minutes to take a nap.
I know. I haven't taken a 90-minute nap in years. But don't do an hour nap or don't do a 2-hour nap, because the problem is you wake up more groggy and tired because you broke your sleep cycle.
Right.
So either a 5 or 10-minute power nap or 90 minutes to get your full sleep cycle. And then usually that's when you feel the most rested. But I agree. I think sleep hygiene, good diet, and exercise and sex. I think those are actually huge, important things for energy.
That's, those, I think you got to do things you enjoy during your day every day. If you're just like slogging through your day, you're going to feel more tired.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so that's the one thing that you like to do is play with filters.
I do? You mean you do?
There's this one that everyone's using right now, that pillowy filter. Have you seen that one on Instagram?
Yeah, my girlfriend did it. It was hilarious.
It's so ridiculous. It's trying to like mimic the Kylie Jenner look, I think. Yeah. But it looks ridiculous. Like everyone looks like a clown.
But the funny thing is people want to look that way, right?
I think some people still do. I think the pendulum's starting to swing. Don't you feel like that?
Less lips?
I think so. I think the pendulum swing. It always goes back and forth in cosmetics, where the pendulum swings too far and then everyone goes back the other way and then goes too far. And so I think big lips will be back in about 5 years. But I think right now we're trending back towards smaller, a little bit more conservative, a little bit better.
Lips.
Yeah.
What's the net? Do you forecast future trends?
What's
Coming
absolutely.
up?
I can tell you what's coming up and what's definitely going away. Okay. So what's going to be gone in 3 years is these things called thread lifts. Yeah. I think I'm predicting that right now. I've been against them and I'm totally, I'm not 100% against it. I think there are some good indications for doing threads, but generally speaking, I think this will be gone in a few years because I think we're seeing a lot of complications and side effects from them. Okay. And I think the average person is not going to be doing thread lifts in the next 3 years. I think a better technology will come out that we will be able to do the same concept as threads, but not this current version that exists today. Okay. I think people are still doing permanent fillers. There's one called Bellafill. There's these permanent fillers that people are doing in their face. I think that will be gone. I think that's a pendulum that came and went.
With that one. 100%.
Yeah, because if there's any problem with it, it's permanent.
Why would you do that?
You can't get rid of it.
That sounds so dumb.
I know. There's a gentleman in town.
Although people get, very dumb tattoos that are permanent too.
Yeah, that's true. But thank God there's tattoo removal. True. There's no permanent filler removal. Because the pendulum swung really far in the 90s where people are doing silicone injections in the lips and face. And then we realized, okay, that's really dumb because if something goes wrong, it's impossible to fix. You have to cut their face open and take out the silicone. It's a huge nightmare.
Oh my gosh.
And so the pendulum swung all the way back to only doing dissolvable fillers. But now pendulum swinging back where people are like, well, I would like something that lasts longer. Yeah. And so I think they're going to end up having problems.
Because it's too expensive to go once a month.
To do it over and over. Every 6 to 12 months on average for most fillers. So I think that's going to swing. But, I think transparency with celebrities and with even just regular people is so important. Like there's this one influencer right now. Her name is Something Witty on Instagram. And she basically she's a normal girl, had Botox in her forehead to get rid of some forehead lines, and her eyebrow totally dropped on one side. She looks like a stroke patient. Like she looks like she has ptosis on one side and looks like a stroke patient. And she's been super open about just talking about it rather than shying away and being super scared and just pissed off at the doctor and wanting to kill him. She has been really open and sharing it on Instagram. And I think it's great because it's giving an opportunity for people to remember that these cosmetic procedures have risks. They're not totally free. Right. And then also for there to be a dialogue about what the worst case effects are of Botox. And the good thing with Botox is that it goes away, whether you use Dysport, Xeomin, Botox, we just generically say Botox.
Right.
It's kind of like saying Xerox, but there's lots of Xerox machine companies.
Right.
But so Dysport, Xeomin, whatever neuromodulator you use to get rid of wrinkles, the effects of it usually go away in 3 to 4 months. So there's nothing that's going to be long-term. So that's the beauty of what this girl is sharing.
But she has a drooped eyelid for 3 months.
Well, it won't be drooped the full 3 months. It'll be drooped for probably a few weeks, and then it'll slowly start to go as the Botox
And there's no
away.
way to make it go away faster.
There are things you can do. So she's using hot and warm compresses, doing hot sauna, trying to neutralize the Botox.
Isn't there a botulinum toxin antidote?
There's not. So
there's no antidote.
They're working on one right now that's going to be longer lasting, can last up to a year. But the fear of that is exactly what you said, because if there's no antidote, then what would happen if something, if a dropped eyebrow happens for 3 months, it's terrible. Imagine for a year. So that's where I do think we are working towards finding a reversal for Botox. But it's tough because what botulinum toxin does is blocks the neuromuscular junction at the end of the nerve terminal. So you don't get acetylcholine release. Right. And so we would have to figure out how to reopen that. So I think they're working on it. We just aren't there yet.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But I do like openness and transparency.
She needs to get
media.
A cool pirate patch now. That's what I would do, I think.
I like that. Just to play the theme.
Well, her eyelid's down,
Yeah, but it's just cosmetic. You can see fine.
Oh, it's not all the way down.
No, not all the way down.
I thought it was her eyes closed.
No, it just looks like it's like a little droopy.
Like droopy.
Yeah. And it'll completely go away 100%. And this happens. And it doesn't mean she had a bad injector. This happens sometimes with the world's greatest. You've
never done it though.
I have never had a droopy eyelid. No, that's correct. But it happens all the time.
Right.
All the time. So that's not something that I'd be too scared of. But yeah, I think that the filters in general, I'm glad that people are, I'm actually happy this ridiculous one is out right now because it's reminding us all sometimes not to be so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think
it's the pillowy filter on Instagram. I've never tried it.
I could tell you the trends I do and don't like, but I have no concept of whether people are still going.
What are the trends you like?
I do not like the super full cheeks.
Yeah, it looks super puffy under their eyes, into their side of their face.
Yeah, I don't like that. I think it makes young people look older, actually.
I agree.
But a lot of people get them.
I know. I think a lot of girls have this concept of wanting to have fullness in their cheeks.
Yeah.
And
it's like the high cheekbone thing, but it doesn't look like cheekbones.
But the problem is that they're going to injectors who are not understanding that bones are sharp angles, not fat puffs.
Yeah.
And they're creating these fat puffs under these girls' eyes, into their cheeks, and just makes them look puffy and fat. Yeah. And it just makes it look older. I agree.
I don't like that one.
I don't like that. What else?
What else do we have? What else is there? I don't think.
Do you like
Botox? I don't notice, I don't think.
Unless it's obvious.
Do I need it?
No, you look good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you.
You need a face transplant. Your Botox is not the issue.
Damn it.
What Jeff doesn't need is anything with his hair.
That wasn't very nice.
That was a joke. It was a joke. You're lucky. You have the world's greatest hair.
Thank you.
It's because, are you still not doing your shampooing?
It's like once a week.
Yeah. I keep misnoming it and saying that you're not shampooing. You do shampoo.
I shampoo it about once a week. Sometimes if it happens to get a little greasier, I have to do it a little, maybe twice in a week. Or if I go to the beach and there's like sand in it and stuff.
Same with your beard?
Beard, I probably trim. Sometimes I get lazy in this mask culture and it's like once a week, but usually it was like twice a week. Probably.
And speaking of mask culture, are you recommending, so the CDC came out and said if you are vaccinated and around vaccinated people, no mask needed. And generally, if you're vaccinated, you probably don't even need a mask anyways, is what they're consideringly saying.
So I know everyone's tired of hearing COVID, so I'll try to be brief, but basically these are the latest recommendations.
Yeah.
If you are vaccinated and you are going to be around someone else who is also vaccinated, you do not need masks.
Yeah.
If you are vaccinated and you're going to be around people who are not vaccinated, you still need a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is the vaccines are like 95% effective. So the likelihood of both vaccinated people, either one of them having it and being able to give it to the others, very statistically unlikely. Rare. However, if you're in a big group and lots of other people and some of them could have it, you theoretically could still get it. Probably a mild case, but you could still get it.
Yeah.
So that's that recommendation.
Right. But traveling is safe now.
Traveling is pretty much safe if you're vaccinated. Yeah. Again, I would still wear a mask on the plane if you're in a higher risk group. But theoretically much safer.
Yeah.
things are opening in LA, up to 50% soon.
Indoor dining as well,
Indoor
right?
dining. And I was reading something about how larger events can happen if they test at the door.
That's great.
So it's exciting, but people there's still cases out there. I had someone this week, a 79-year-old guy with very high fevers said, I'm having very high fevers. I asked him when he got his second COVID vaccine. He told me he didn't get the vaccine because he didn't believe in it. I wanted to say, do you believe in it now? Didn't. We got him COVID tested. He's COVID positive, and we got him the antibody treatment. And
wow,
hopefully,
does he have to be admitted to the hospital?
No, we got him. We did an outpatient antibody treatment, and now we're kind of watching the vitals, and they've improved. And so I think, knock wood, we're okay. But
man.
It's still there,
it's still real.
It's still there. If you're in a higher risk group, just get the vaccine.
Yeah, and if you have someone in your family in a higher risk group, help them get the vaccine.
Get the vaccine.
They may not know how to do it. Help them.
Getting the vaccine is your civic duty.
Yeah.
I think that's the bottom line, is not just protecting yourself. If we all get the vaccine, this pandemic's over.
Yeah.
Because no one has it anymore.
And one thing I want to ask you, because one of our mutual patients told me that he got COVID, right? He got COVID, physically was sick. So he doesn't want to get the vaccine because he doesn't need it. Tell me your thoughts, because I know obviously that's not the recommendation.
We recommend that you do not get the vaccine for about 3 months after your active infection, because you tend to get a much worse reaction to the vaccine because your body really intimately remembers the infection. So you get like much worse side effect from it. And plus you're still protected from having had it. But the immunity from having it doesn't last forever.
Right.
And the least...
That's the key.
If your case was worse, you may have immunity a little bit longer, but we don't know. So the vaccine will give that person much more protection for a longer period of time. We don't know how long the protection lasts. Pfizer just said at least 6 months, because we've basically been 6 months out and we know it's still working.
Yes.
And they will every month, I'm sure next month, they'll say, hey, we're good for 7 months.
Right.
And we don't know. It could only be a year, in which case people need to get it again. That's the scary thing.
Yeah.
And update these variants. The Brazilian variants are coming.
Yeah, and this will be kind of like the flu vaccine potentially, where we just have to do a booster every year, things like that.
But more important because it's a worse virus.
Yes, way more important, yes. But also, flu vaccines, don't ignore, still very important in my opinion.
Yeah.
Everyone should be getting their flu vaccine.
Yeah.
And the other interesting one study showed that people who've had COVID physically got sick from it and then got the vaccine have up to 6 times as much antibody protection.
It's amazing.
So it's amazing. So
I'm in that
definitely
category.
Get vaccinated. Yeah, that's great. You were one of the first people to get COVID right at the beginning when you were taking care of patients not knowing what COVID was yet.
Yeah, we couldn't even test. When I got it from a patient, I couldn't even test for it. So I tested this person for flu and it was negative.
Wow.
And then I got it, and I was probably one of the first people tested at Cedars.
Wow.
When they first had the test, and you had to go through like 20 layers of, I had to call the infectious disease department and say, listen, I'm a physician. I don't know if I can go into the hospital. I need to get a test.
Right.
And I actually got tested, and I had to quarantine it took 7 days to get the result at that point. For their own physician.
Yeah, one of the best hospitals in the country.
For their own physician. That was just the fastest they could get it done.
It's crazy. And now turnaround times, it's just insane what's happened.
You can get a PCR in a couple hours, and a rapid takes 15 minutes.
Insane. America did a good job, though, I will say, for the vaccinations. Just getting
the vaccinations started off terribly, and since then
they picked it up. They did a great job.
Better.
I mean, other countries are currently locked down, like physically locked down.
Yeah.
I did a consult yesterday with a patient in France, and I did a consult yesterday with a patient in Canada, both of which telling me that they're completely locked down. So it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So God bless America.
So they want to come here for their vaccine and their nose job, right?
Vaccine and nose job.
It's fun. The last thing I'm going to mention is I watched the South Park. There's a South Park episode about people trying to get the vaccine. And the analogy.
Great show.
They're just always so up on
modern
culture and whatever. So the episode, everyone's trying to get into the vaccination center like it's a nightclub. So like the people are outside in the front, and there's like the velvet
bouncer,
rope or whatever, and a bouncer. And they're like, hey, I'm friends with the doctor or whatever. He sent me. And they're like, Anyway, so they're all like using their excuses of why, hey, I have an immune problem. I have herpes. I'll show it to you. And like they're all trying to like use their excuse to get in. And that's totally how it is right now.
That's kind of like your LA Times article.
Yeah, exactly.
You were on the front page of LA Times about rich people trying to get the vaccine from you.
It's all such fake news. It's funny because I never thought news was that fake until I guess it's been more, I think in with the internet and stuff, it's everyone's trying to get clicks. So it's become more
clicks,
fake maybe, but maybe it's always, I don't know if it's always been that way. And I always trusted it.
I think it's a mix and I think it's getting more skewed in today's world, but I think some consumers are smart enough to see through some of it and some are clearly not.
It's hard to know though.
Some are clearly not.
It's hard to know what's fake.
I know. Because you get called a sheep either way.
The dolphin fake tuna thing is fake apparently.
Yeah, the dolphin fake tuna. Yeah, according to Seaspiracy, the dolphin-safe tuna label is completely nonsense because there's zero actual regulation.
They don't monitor it.
No.
And they get paid to put it on the can.
And
that's actually how they exist as a company.
And the people put it on the can are the same people doing the fishing. It's the same conglomerate companies. So it's the most ridiculous thing ever.
So either that's fake, either dolphin-safe tuna is fake, or Seaspiracy is fake. One of them has to be fake.
Or dolphins don't exist.
I've seen dolphins, so I think they probably do. But yeah, you know what I mean?
Dolphins definitely exist.
Yeah. Anyway, I have no voice left. I think we gotta wrap this up.
Well, great episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Continue to like, share, subscribe. And we're going to have some great guests in the next few episodes. So continue to tune in and share this with your loved ones. And this is a great episode to send to some people for all the medical tidbits.
Yeah.
Great episode.
We gotta eat other people's poop.
Yeah. And you got to stop talking.
I need to stop talking.
Yeah. Voice rest.
Thank you.
Thank you.